Bradly Nadeau sent down to the Chicago Wolves. A big surprise. I know a lot of people, both last season and especially this preseason, were pulling for Nadeau to crack the lineup. To me, I just never saw it being a possibility for the sense of who are the odd men out. Because on that, really, assuming Will Carrier is fitting in the Jordan line, your absolute lockdown, shit brick house wall line, knocking dudes left and right.
Yeah.
You have KK, Hall, Robbie, and Jank to fill 3 spots. Add Bradly Nadeau to that mix. That's 5 guys to fill 3 slots. So it just, based on the contracts that have been given out, it just, to me, it never made sense for Nadeau to make the team because of the contract situation. Now, if guys get moved, are part of trade packages, and a slot becomes open, I could see that being a possibility. On Rod had a few comments on Nadeau. Part of his quote saying, you can see we have a lot of forwards, to the point I just mentioned. Quote, so it really wouldn't make sense at this point, the way the schedule worked out. We'd rather keep him going and him playing. Plus, he's developing really well. We'll keep an eye on him. He did everything he needed to do. Which, again, makes sense that if he'd be on the 4th line, limited minutes, you'd rather have him in Chicago, developing, growing, continuing to get better. That way, once that roster spot is available, which even next season, if I'm correct, let me check the Canes Puckpedia page. Even next season, it won't be. So he'd have to knock someone off next year as well. Your thoughts, Zach, on Nadeau going to Chicago this year and not cracking the opening night roster?
It makes sense, honestly, because where you look at right now, like even like Johnny Smith is still with the Hurricanes in some aspects. That's another guy. Like after the roster cuts from Tuesday, you go from 40 to 26. You still need to get down to 23. And with Nadeau, I mean, Rich, he's 20 years old. Like if you're talking like the dark ages of the Hurricanes where everyone they drafted was getting thrown right into the lineup, that's a different story. But now the depth is so strong for the Hurricanes that they even mentioned, will he be a first call-up? It depends on the situation. And yeah, why would you want to bring him up and put him on the 4th line to play, 8 minutes a night when you can go into Chicago and put him, 17, 18 minutes a night? Like, we all know his NHL shot, like his shot is NHL level ready. It's just, he's a little bit more physical. He's been doing some, penalty kill stuff as well. They're trying to add a little bit more to his utility belt of what he can do as a hockey player. Like he still has a long way to go too in terms of his growth. Yeah, you could score goals, but you're talking about the American League, and a lot of teams were probably, were they ready for him to do that? I'm not sure. So I think in terms of that, you want to see what all of his other intangibles work out to be for his development. Like there's nothing wrong with having him kind of stay down there. And I love this quote from Mike Maniscalco when I had him on last week. When you talk about how you want people to cook, like let Tulsky cook with trades and stuff, it's okay to let guys bake in the oven a little bit longer in their development. I'm like, that is a perfect analogy. I've been using it a lot. So shout out to Mike, because I think it's amazing. It's right. Why do you want to get them out of the oven so fast? Maybe when they're not ready to go, let them bake a little bit longer. Let them still get used to the system. The American don't have all the pressure on them, and have them be like, we can't, like, Rich, how hard it is to have a Seth Jarvis, Jackson Blake every single season, a guy just coming in and forcing their way to get on the roster. Now it's like this roster is pretty much 99% set. So it would have been very hard for Bradly to do the crack the lineup and not be. 4th line makes no sense. 3rd line, he would have to almost force his way into the top 6. And where you look at the top 6s at right now, that is impossible to break into. So yeah, it just doesn't make sense to have him come up. Is it a surprise? Maybe a teeny bit, because he had a phenomenal preseason. But in reality, why force him onto a roster for 8 minutes when you can go and just light up the American for 17 minutes a night and just let you keep developing as the season goes along?
Yeah, another benefit for Nadeau as well is his contract is through the 26-27 season.
Yeah.
And then he's an RFA after that. So I think
got
if he
time.
was an
You got time.
yeah, if he was an RFA after this season, I'd be a little concerned that maybe he signs an offer sheet because he'd see the playing time somewhere else. But he has next season to do it as well. And again, RFA. So even if some team tries to sign him for a deal, if you're like, no, I do not want to lose this kid, be able to keep him as well. Or you get
give him a
an
bridge.
unreal amount of compensation. Yeah. So you have
You can give
a
him a
lot
bridge
of time on him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you look at all the other guys too, even when his it's crazy the way the Canes lineup is set up. Because really, once his contract ends, the only other forwards contracts are ending then. Essentially Jankowski after this season, but then 2 years, it's just both with Jordans, Jordan Martinook, Jordan Stahl.
Taylor Hall's
So
Taylor Hall just signed a 3-year deal, so his is not that very long either. So Tulsky, he's playing 4D chess. So like he's looking at the now, but he's looking also where's everyone's contracts ending and what guys do we need to sign by this point. Like they're planning the long game to keep this window as open as long as possible. So yeah, even if he's not making this roster this year or even possibly next year, he could be making the roster very soon with a lot of these other contracts coming off the Bucks where you don't have to force his way in the lineup. He just does enough to be like, I want to be here. And it's like, okay, you're not supplanting anyone because we got possibly some spots open up or maybe some guys that might be kind of not where they're at. So they're lining up these contracts perfectly to where you're kind of just, it's a rotating, it's a conveyor belt. All right, these guys are coming out, these guys are coming in. That's kind of what you're looking at for the Hurricanes, a well-oiled machine.
And or the potential as a trade asset, because you were able to go through the Gensel trade and the Mikko trade and still keep them, which is master classes by Waddell and Tulsky on their own. So if you finally pulled the trigger on him, I'm sure it'd be a part of a hell of a return for whatever guy you're getting back based on how aggressive the Canes are and done in wanting a superstar. So that's a possibility too, if needed.
Hopefully
you have, long term, he'd be a great fit. It's just finding the roster space for him.